How'd you get involved in all this?
Because I had no friends in high school. This is what you become right here.
So you were a nerd back in high school?
I was a nerd, and then I went into the Marines. Right out of high school when I was 18. I went to my first duty station was 3rd Surveillance Reconnaissance Intelligence Group. So when I was there, I quickly got moved over to the computer side of the house. And then from there, I went to Marine Security Guard Battalion at Quantico, Virginia, and was responsible for 128 cybersecurity for embassies around the world. So I had 128 embassies that I had to make sure never got hacked. Because could you imagine if an embassy got hacked or all the embassies got hacked and now the hacker knows what time the Marine is changing guard, where's the armory, how many M16 A2 service rifles are there, how many grenades. There's so many things that you can glean if you were to hack an embassy.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What year did you start first doing this? Because the internet's changed a lot.
Yeah, I was in the Marines in 1992. And why I think I got into it was it is true that in high school, I really didn't have any friends, but I started to get into computers. And the thing with computers is you get out of it exactly what you put into it. There's no disappointment with computers. There's disappointment with people, unfortunately. But whatever I put into that computer, whatever code I put in, I get what I get. And if I made a mistake, it immediately tells me and I fix it and I move on. So there's no human element to it, which I really enjoyed.
Well, email wasn't even a big thing yet in 1990.
That's right.
I mean, they were using email. You could send emails and stuff, but it was still DOS.
Yeah.
And all right.
Yeah. And the military had their own email system at that time. But yeah, there was no, you're absolutely right. There was no publicly available, full-blown email system in place. And it was, COBOL was the big language, common object business-oriented language, nerd stuff. And that things have evolved so much to look where we are today. It's unbelievable. The internet has just exploded.
Yeah. And the power of devices. This is a new iPad. And they tell me it's
probably a good portion of your life is on that iPad.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
There's way more power in here than we had for the moonshot.
Yeah.
Right? You could do the moonshot with this.
Basically. Yeah. You can control a multi-billion-dollar company with an iPad.
Is this a good thing? Is the internet a net positive, in your opinion?
I always joke around and say if I had the power to burn down the internet, I would. I feel that but it's just, I'm extremely jaded because of the business that I'm in. My job revolves around bad guys all day, every day, and watching them use the internet for the worst possible purposes imaginable. But there's other people who have very pleasant experiences on the internet. They run small businesses off of the internet and they have no problems. But I do see quite an uptick in even the amount of businesses that are getting harassed by customers, and it's online, and you get bad reviews online and you want to get those reviews removed. And then you find out it's a competitor who's doing this to you, and they're doing it online and they're sabotaging your entire business, and they're doing it from the comfort of their own home on an iPad, probably.
What do we do about that? Because, right now, being fairly high profile and knowing high profile people, I've seen people that'll go put hate messages on my social media platforms. And then I'll be talking to friends of mine that are also in the public eye. And there are times when we have seen that somebody will post exactly the same message.
Cut and paste.
On 10 of our emails, just seeing if anybody will take the bait.
Yeah.
If anybody will respond and get bent out of shape and argue with them or react to them or whatever. And then there are people that will just go on a hate campaign against someone. You get people that will just jump on the bandwagon and not have any idea what's being talked about.
Yeah.
But they'll jump on the bandwagon and start spewing hate and I'm going to come cut your baby out of your stomach and kill your pets.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what they're even talking about, but they're spewing that kind of language and hatred on somebody's Twitter account or any social media account. And there's no check and balance to that at all.
Right. And I think Twitter, it'd be curious to see what happens with Twitter over the next 90 days or so, because if you compare your Instagram experience with your Twitter experience, at least for me personally, it's night and day. I feel that Instagram does a better job at it than Twitter does. I feel like they have better algorithms in place that can automatically go and look for hatred and certain curse words and certain things, a series of words, kill baby, for example. Like you had mentioned, that's a prime example of one that would be gone right away. And then how do you stop it? What do you do? Well, you have very thick skin, I can imagine. So it probably bounces right off of you. But a lot of people, block, ignore, report. But the problem when you do that is trolls are seasoned. A seasoned troll probably has 50 other accounts. So you go through the headache of getting one suspended. They still have another 49 to use.
Well, does the algorithm, and we can talk about what that means in a minute, but does the algorithm pick up that these accounts have 0 followers and they've sent 50 messages in a year?
Yeah. And
does it pick up on that?
It should. I've seen it hit or miss, especially on Twitter. It really does. It's hit or miss. It's very odd. And that's why I'm curious to see what the next 90 days hold, because I think that's Elon's basic premise. I've seen him say it multiple times, is that there were a lot of issues related to programming, for example, at Twitter. And I think he's coming in to try and fix that. So that's going to be the first litmus test.
Well, I guess we have to talk about where that intersects with free speech. People talk about First Amendment as though they've never read it. I mean, really, it says nothing about business.
Right.
It just says that the government will pass no law.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about what a business can or can't do or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's a slippery slope if they start trying to require some of these social media platforms to regulate speech. And of course, they have been regulating speech. They just kind of decide what's okay and what's not.
That's right. And, look, as a Marine, I would take a bullet for your right to free speech and to say what you want. That's why I joined the service. But there is a limit. So I can give you a personal example. We mentioned earlier, Hunter Moore. So Hunter Moore, after took over his site, he called me a pedophile. And he did that on Twitter. And he did that to hundreds of thousands of followers. And just like you'd referenced earlier, other people, without knowing anything, were amplifying that and retweeting it. And next thing you know, millions of people are seeing this and they're reading it and they're retweeting it. And you feel hopeless. I did reach out at the time to Twitter and said, this is insane. Shut this down. They wouldn't do it. And it was, basically, well, you're a public figure and people can say whatever they want about you because you're a public figure. Nope. I would not accept that as an answer. I sued him for defamation and won $250,000.
Problem with a lot of these people is you can sue and get a judgment.
Then you got to collect.
I'm
going to beat him over the head with it until he's dead. I'm going to chase him, all around the world if I have to with that judgment. Because the plan is whatever, I've already, said this publicly, whatever we collect, I'm donating 100% of it to battered women's shelters throughout the United States, which is important to me. So I'll get that money from him one way or another.
Have you collected any of it yet?
Not yet. He was in prison. So we couldn't collect it. I wanted to collect it in prison, but even my lawyers were like, damn, that's pretty harsh. But I was very serious what he did. But now he's getting back in the swing of things since Netflix has come out. My understanding, he's starting to get some money again. He's working on a new book, supposedly. So, I will get that money from him one way or another.
Yeah. If he's doing a book, I don't know what kind of advance he's getting or whatever, but you can attach that, right?
Oh, yeah. We're going to do a debtor's exam. With the debtor's exam, you get him on camera for 8 hours. And besides the monetary aspect, I'm really hoping I can make him cry.
Yeah. Calling you a pedophile publicly, anybody, and then others jumping on the bandwagon.
And my childhood, my past, by the way, I noticed that you do a lot of work with foster care. And I was in the foster care system in New York City back in the 70s, and it was horrific. I was homeless at 7. But I saw a lot of really awful things related to pedophilia at all these different foster homes I was in. So for me, it was extremely personal. I think there's nothing worse that you can call someone than a pedophile.
Yeah. These are people that have no information about you whatsoever.
None.
They just see somebody say something and then they go, oh, well, this will be fun.
Yep.
It makes you wonder sometimes if it makes sense to track every single one of them down and hold every single one of them accountable.
Yeah. Well, my whole tagline is sometimes you have to be a bully to beat a bully.
Yeah.
And these guys are bullying you online, and, sometimes you have to fight back, but you have to know how to fight back.
Yeah. You got to know where they're vulnerable, what their currency is,
Everyone's
what
got a
matters to them.
vulnerability. Everyone's
Yeah.
got some kind of vulnerability.
Yeah,
You
of
just got to
course they
find
do.
it. Yeah.